Good evening, and thank you for watching ECSO News on Blab TV, where facts matter. I'm Allison Morgan.
And I'm Amber Southard. This past weekend ended with a literal bang, thanks to this guy, Nicholas Rashad Prayer. He decided to celebrate his 18th birthday by trying to run over an ECSO bike patrol deputy. It all started when the deputy initiated a traffic stop on Prayer. Prayer began to flee from deputies, ramming into several vehicles on Pensacola Beach. A pursuit began after Prayer left the beach and crossed the 3-mile bridge, where Pensacola police officers were waiting. The vehicle chase ended near the train tracks on 9th Avenue, but Prayer wasn't done running. He left the vehicle and took off on foot. Still inside the car were 2 passengers that were both charged with resisting without violence after ignoring officers' commands to exit the vehicle. Prayer was later arrested at his home on West Avery Street. He was charged with aggravated fleeing and eluding after a crash, aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, aggravated battery, leaving the scene of an accident with property damage, and operating a motor vehicle without a valid license.
And we are looking for this suspect who not only stole items but hit a man with a pry bar. On July 22nd around 3:45 a.m., this suspect stole items from the Circle K on the 2200 block of Highway 29 in Cantonment. A person inside the store observed the theft and followed the suspect, who was in a small black sedan headed eastbound on Roberts Road. A short time later, the suspect jumped out of the vehicle near East Roberts Road and Lallar Lane. The suspect took a pry bar and hit the man who was following him, then got back into his vehicle and drove off. If you recognize the man in these photos, please call the ECSO at 436-9620 or call Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP.
ECSO deputies took a slew of illegal narcotics off the streets after making a traffic stop last month. On July 19th, Christopher Daniel Gonzalez was pulled over for a traffic violation. A search of his car revealed cocaine, promethazine, Percocet, morphine sulfate, oxycodone, marijuana, and other prescription pills. Stolen weapons were also located. Gonzalez was arrested and charged with drug possession, cocaine possession, dealing in stolen property, carrying concealed weapon, drug equipment possession, and marijuana distribution. The passenger in the vehicle, Rodney Kyle Stevens, was also charged with drug possession of a controlled substance without a prescription. Well, it's that time where we like to talk about our most wanted here at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and we have Deputy Melanie Peterson with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So, who do we have this week?
Well, we have 3 fugitives for this week. Kit Kilpatrick, she's wanted for possession of cocaine and destroying evidence, and her bond is $5,500. We also have Brian McGee. Brian is wanted for fleeing and eluding police, driving while license suspended, 3rd offense, and also possession of cocaine, and he does not have a bond.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Are those related at all?
No, they're just, when I saw that how many charges he had, it was like, wow, we really need to get him picked up.
Right.
And our last wanted fugitive for this week is Carlos Moore. He's wanted for grand theft and fraud, and his bond is $15,000.
All right. Are any of these, by any chance, on our wheel of fugitives right now, just ready to be selected?
Well, I believe that Mr. McGee is on our wheel, and so hopefully he'll be the lucky winner next week.
We do have exciting news about the wheel of fugitives. We're now on
Yes.
Channel 3 and WFGX. You want to tell us about that?
Absolutely. We're shown every Wednesday. The winner of the wheel, as we announce, gets a free complimentary photo shoot all across town. They get placed on our digital billboards. And it's a great way to allow tipsters to provide Crime Stoppers with anonymous tips, and in return, we'll reward them with cash because if they provide us with a location for the arrest. A lot of good feedback. I did want to let you know that I was working my extra duty job last night, and a lot of the employees said, hey, we see y'all on TV. We love the show. We love the wheel. So, I mean, people are just, even while I'm at the courthouse, even little kids are watching it. So
well, it's not only a way for our criminal to win.
That's right.
It's also a good way for everybody out there in the community to kind of win. So tell them how Crime Stoppers work and how they can remain anonymous and how they can report this.
Well, anybody that has information on any criminal activity or any wanted fugitives, anybody that we feature, they can call anonymously to 433-7STOP or 7867, and I'm so used to spitting out the number first. But that is our 24-hour-a-day call center, and directly to Crime Stoppers. For those that don't want to call the call center, they can go online at www.p3tips.com and provide a tip online. They're given a number. They can check the status through P3 24 hours a day because they're also given a password which gives them access to communicate with me. But any information that we get, once it's been verified as good and eligible for a reward, if it's led to an arrest, we're going to reward them in cash.
And we've had a lot of success already with Wheel of Fugitives.
Absolutely. In 2017, so far, between 2016, the Crime Stoppers fiscal year starts July 1 through June the 30th, and they gave over $18,000
Wow.
away within 1 year
Wow.
for rewards.
That's awesome.
That's gracious.
And we can attribute a lot of that success to Wheel of Fugitives, and of course Sheriff Morgan providing our kiosk and our Wanted Fugitive show. So,
And we were talking the other day, we have a couple radio shows, and we were talking on there, and somebody asked the great question, where does the reward money come from?
I love telling people this because no tax dollars are provided for Crime Stoppers. The criminal, anyone that's been convicted of a crime and has to go to court or charged with a crime, they're assessed a Crime Stopper fine of $20. That money's collected at the end of each year and redistributed to the county it was collected in. So literally, folks, the criminals pay us to catch them, pay you all to catch them.
Your famous
So,
motto?
yes, crime doesn't pay, but we do, and it's working.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
Well, again, you can catch Wheel of Fugitives on our Facebook page, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office Facebook page. You can catch us on WEAR every Wednesday morning at 6:40 and Wednesday evenings at 6 and 10, and on the sister station, FGX. So
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
thanks for having me.
Congrats are in order for 2 new sergeants at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. A promotions presentation was held for Sergeant Kilgan and Sergeant White last week, where they received their sergeant chevrons. Congratulations from your family at the ECSO.
And we hope you can join us for our 2nd annual Milkshake with a School Resource Officer. We will be at the Chick-fil-A on Navy Boulevard tomorrow. Milkshake with an SRO gives parents and students a chance to meet their school resource officer before the school year begins. And guess what? Milkshakes will be free. And speaking of school resource officers, you may have heard a resolution between the ECSO and the school district has been made. The resolution will reduce the number of SROs, but does not eliminate the SRO program. Affected schools will see a reduction from 2 officers to 1, with the exception of the north end of the county, Ernest Ward Middle School and Northview High School, which will share an SRO. Both hope no further reductions are necessary.
Our new 8-week Citizens Law Enforcement Academy is now underway. Our Citizens Law Enforcement Academy gives members of our community a behind-the-scenes view of how their sheriff's office works, and they get a chance to learn about different departments. Last week, the class was welcomed by Sheriff David Morgan, and everyone learned about our domestic security and patrol units. This week, our mounted unit will teach the class about the importance of having trained horses in law enforcement. If you missed the sign-up for this current academy, don't worry. Our next one, which will be 4 weeks long, will be held in a few months.
Gary Circle, we're coming to your neighborhood next. Our Operation Clean Sweep, that is. That's right, our next Operation Clean Sweep will be held August 17th. We'll be meeting at Ebenwood Community Center at 8 a.m. The focus of the Operation Clean Sweep is to work with neighborhood watch groups, residents, churches, and business owners in an effort to clean up neighborhoods and end criminal activity in them.
The stats are in from our last Operation Clean Sweep in Bayou Grand Villas. 5 arrests were made and 2 warrants were served by the ECSO. 14 traffic citations and 13 code violations were issued.
There's a growing interest and people wanting their communities to not only be better, appear better, but to, just have law enforcement influence in the communities. Check on people that have warrants, check on people that maybe be sex offenders. That's all of what we do in Clean Sweeps.
Operation Clean Sweeps are scheduled monthly and booked through March 2019.
And we have an update on Loki. The female Dutch Shepherd, rescued by ECSO Deputy Rasmussen, met Loki a year ago, being dispatched to a call about a dog who appeared dehydrated and faint. The owner told Deputy Rasmussen he could no longer care for the dog. That's when the deputy added Loki to his family. A year later, Deputy Rasmussen tells us Loki is doing great. She is fully adjusted to our family and loves her big brother, Thor. They do everything together. She is completely spoiled and one of the sweetest dogs you will ever meet. All she wants is love. Well, love and whatever you may have to eat.
We need your help locating the people in this week's Missing Persons segment. The first juvenile we are highlighting in this segment is 14-year-old Lulana Aguilar. Aguilar was reported as a runaway on June 28th. She is possibly staying with friends around the area of Green Street and Garnett Circle. We are also looking for 17-year-old Anaya Johnson. Johnson has been missing since July 12th. She is considered a habitual runaway. Johnson's hair is now burgundy. And 14-year-old Maria Morris has been missing since July 30th. Morris is a habitual runaway. If you have any information on any of these missing people, please contact the ECSO at 436-9620.
I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and thank you for watching Ask the Sheriff. This is your chance to ask me any questions you want answered about the ECSO. Our team hits the streets again, and here are some of the questions you asked. Zachary asked a question about, you would probably have enough money, Sheriff, if you didn't spend money on things like mobile command centers and probably, I'll throw in the SWAT Bearcat, Zachary, and some other things. Again, Zachary, you need to be a little bit smarter on the budget, and the reason why I say that is this. I don't have this large pile of money in front of me, Zachary, that I can choose to spend on what I want to spend it on. They refer to that as either colors of money or pots of money, meaning that I can only spend this funding line for these things. What you mentioned there, the mobile command post, our first mobile command post several years ago was purchased with some grant money. The one we currently have was purchased through local option sales tax, as was our SWAT Bearcat, which is the armored carrier that we use for the protection of our officers when they respond to SWAT. I cannot use that money, I repeat, cannot use that money to hire deputies, pay overtime, etc. So again, prior to getting on social media, I caution you, Zachary, but I'm sure you'll do it again, as will everyone else. We'll do our best to field all of those questions rationally and calmly, and non-accusatory, by the way. Get smart on the budget process. I think you'll find the Escambia County Sheriff's Office manages their money better than any other agency in the Escambia County government. As a matter of fact, I challenge you to do that. Why? Because we account for every dollar every year. We're audited every year. And pretty soon we're going to get the governor and his staff to take a look at our budget and the county's budget. Do you really think, Zachary, I would take a budget to the governor and the chief financial officer of the state of Florida if I wasn't pretty sure my house was in order? I think that would be inviting disaster if I didn't, don't you? We welcome that outside look. We're looking forward to having a third party review the budgets and the budgetary process in Escambia County. Jeff asked us to contact all the local radio stations and remind everybody to turn their lights on when it's raining, because that's the law. You are correct, Jeff, it is the law. We do occasionally cite people for that. Again, it's not a high priority. We don't stop people and do that. Normally, as a courtesy, we'll tell people to turn their lights on. I'm like you. I think that's such a safety issue. It's like child restraints and everything else. People with any common sense will do that. And I'm amazed at the number of people in inclement weather, as it's referred to, do not turn on their headlights. Some of it's also due to the fact, though, that many of the newer cars today, Jeff, the lights automatically come on when it's dark or when it's raining. So some people get used to that, and then they drive another car, which they have to manually turn on, and they forget that. But we routinely say that on the radio, Jeff. We put it on our Facebook page. When I do WCOA or WSRE, we tell people, in inclement weather, make sure that you turn on your headlights. So we do make a push of that. However, can't be everywhere all the time, and certainly can't be in every vehicle. And while that's a great idea, what do you do about the people, Jeff, that play CDs in their car? Or if it's an old guy like me, they've got a cassette tape in their car. There's folks that never listen to the radio. So while we can put it out over different venues, we have no assurance of reaching everyone. That's a requirement that we call common sense. Unfortunately, common sense is not an issue item. If I could issue everybody some common sense, a whole host of my problems would go away. Joseph asked about, is there sheriff's office concerned, or do we do anything about the number of stolen motorcycles in Escambia County? Well, number one, Joseph, I'm a biker. I own and ride a motorcycle, and the answer to your question is yes. I mean, any stolen vehicle, reports are taken if they're reported, and we work through the appropriate, highway patrol, city police department, Florida Department of Transportation, and we enter that information into the appropriate database. The problem with stolen motorcycles, though, Joseph, is much like a lot of our car burglaries, and that is, if you'll notice the next time you're out riding, which I do all the time, many times people park their motorcycles outside a bar or a restaurant, or in some of our public parks, and they don't secure their bike. They don't turn and lock the front wheel. They don't make sure that your luggage carriers are appropriately locked, and I can't tell you the number of times I've stopped at a restaurant and my wife and I will dismount the motorcycle and go through the appropriate things to secure our bike, but every motorcycle around me is not secured. I've even seen some with the keys still in them. So if you're a responsible biker, which I like to think of myself as one, as well as a lot of the people that I know who have motorcycles, you probably will not be a victim of a motorcycle theft. If you appropriately secure it, if you have a garage or a carport, make sure that it's contained there. But yes, just like any stolen motor vehicle, all of those are reported, and we aggressively pursue those cases.
When is it considered lawful to break a car window if there's a kid or an animal in a car that's cut off and it's hot outside? Is it lawful, or how does that work?
Jasmine asked about when it's appropriate to break the window of a car if there's an animal or a child in a locked vehicle. I will tell you, Jasmine, immediately. The reason being is the state statute does not allow for children and also for temperatures that are also harmful to animals, obviously, to leave a child unattended in a vehicle. So therefore, an officer uses their discretion. And normally we get those tips, by the way, from citizens. They will walk by a vehicle and notice that a child or an animal is in a car unattended. Hopefully the windows are cracked, but again, the outside ambient temperature has a lot to do with the actions the officer will take. But it's unlawful to leave a child in a vehicle unattended. So I would suspect that in most instances, an officer will use their discretion and probably make immediate entry into any vehicle that they find that circumstance that you just described.
What are you doing to lessen the drug problems in the county?
Jose asked, what are we doing to lessen the drug problems in the county? Well, Jose, this is an ongoing activity at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, as with all the things that we do in law enforcement. But specifically in the area of drugs, I will tell you, our focus is tremendously so on that. Why? Because of what's referred to as debilitating effect on our entire community. It affects every strata in Escambia County, from the very poor to the very affluent. And as I've said many times, drugs kill people and destroys our families and the very fabric of our society. We work very closely with all other law enforcement agencies in Escambia County, both local at the PPD level and federal. Our Drug Enforcement Administration, the U.S. Marshal Service, the ATF, which gets involved with firearms, which all too often are involved in drug activity. But I will tell you that we hear so many times that drug users, that's a low-level crime. Nothing could be farther from the truth. If you're a drug user, you're in an aberrant lifestyle that does not allow you to lead a normal lifestyle, meaning, I've never met a successful drug user. So if you're a habitual user of drugs, what occurs is you can't get up on time, you can't go to work, and so you will slowly but surely drift into a criminal lifestyle. You say, how? Because you're going to have to supply yourself with your drugs somehow. And the way that drug users do that is by committing low-level crimes such as car burglaries, house burglaries, retail thefts, etc. And so drugs are something that they are not a victimless crime. And in our fervor to change many of the Florida criminal statutes and criminal justice system to make it fairer, we have a lot of folks that believe that drug users are nonviolent offenders that we should not incarcerate. Well, those nonviolent offenders commit a lot of crime in our community, which are economic in nature as opposed to violent, but it harms our community nonetheless. The focus of narcotics and its suppression and elimination in our community is something that we do every day. Pat asked the question about noise ordinances and are there any in the county. The answer to that question is, Pat, there is. We tried to make a county-wide ordinance, but the Board of County Commissioners in their interest to make it fair and equitable, to the best of my knowledge, could not come to a decision, the last that I checked, on having a noise ordinance throughout the county. And if you stop and think about it, it doesn't probably make a lot of sense. And the reason why I say that is this: do you want a noise ordinance that applies to Pensacola Beach, which is primarily a tourist area? The nightclubs and the restaurants stay open late out there, and depending upon the tourist season, it can get pretty rowdy at times. Do you want that same ordinance applying to someplace out in the far reaches of Escambia County, say out in Walnut Hill or McDavid or even Century? And the answer is so many times one size doesn't fit all for noise ordinances. So we have one, but they're so restrictive in nature, I will be honest with you, from a law enforcement perspective, they're almost unenforceable. In order to be fair, if you will, and equitable, and not just go out and issue a noise ordinance citation, we have sound meters. And the county commissioners wanted our deputies to go out and take a meter reading so many feet back, wait 30 minutes, come back, take another reading, and it was like 3 times before then we issued a warning to a business or property owner that you have an issue now with noise. The standard rule is through the week, anytime after 10 o'clock at night. If there's a barking dog or a neighbor that's doing whatever, you can also, we can enact what's called, disturbing the peace, meaning that we can go and talk to citizens and say, your neighbors have asked that we come out and, you need to get control of your barking dog, or if you're having a party and it's gotten too loud. And then over the weekend, it's normally midnight, on Fridays and Saturdays. So we can use, those statutes also, for, maintaining the peace, if you will, in our community. But most of the time, people are very reasonable. It's, it's a rare exception where when law enforcement goes out and makes contact that, we can't quell that low-level disturbance. But there is no, to the best of my knowledge, a county-wide ordinance on noise.
I'd like to know how the sheriff believes that medical marijuana will affect Escambia County.
Jenna asked, how do I feel or believe that medical marijuana will affect Escambia County? Well, Jenna, quite obviously it'll affect the state of Florida and not just Escambia County. But to be specific, I've always taken the position on medical marijuana that, and by the way, this is a little bit, I will tell you up front that I'm breaking somewhat with other law enforcement agency heads and professionals. I'm not qualified enough to in any way engage with the medical profession to dictate to them what they should and should not prescribe for medications for their patients. I would not be so presumptuous as to lecture a doctor on medications, any new medication or old medication for that matter. Marinol has been around for a very, very long time, late 60s, early 70s, which can be taken in a pill or a patch form, which is, again, medical THC, which is the content in marijuana. It's a very low amount that is there, and it's been available for prescription for some time, but again, in very limited cases. I think what you're going to see here, and what we fear in law enforcement, is that the passage of medical marijuana is just step one to the final legalization of marijuana. Study after study has proven that marijuana used in the forms that you see on the street, because the THC content is extremely high. A lot of people my age and older don't understand that the THC content in today's marijuana is nothing like the marijuana they smoked back in the 60s, when marijuana was the drug of choice and it was a craze. And this is where all of the folks that are banging the drum for legalization across the board talk about it's no worse than alcohol, etc. I don't engage in those circular debates. I normally, as I'm doing with answering your question, is go back to the data that I am familiar with, that I have read. So medical marijuana, again, I won't debate that. I think that's left up to the medical profession. I know I find it a little disconcerting that the American Medical Association, the American Ophthalmic Association, and many of those who were brought into this debate will tell you that there's little or no available data to show the efficacy of actually prescribing these drugs. So, but again, that's the medical profession, and if they're having issue with that, then they won't prescribe it, and I pretty much leave it at that. My concern for marijuana across the board is its eventual legalization. I would tell folks to check some of the data coming out of Colorado and some of the states that have basically legalized marijuana, and they have some huge social issues right now. It's much like gambling. There are folks who will benefit tremendously from the legalization of gambling, drugs, etc. and society as a whole suffers for it, because who pays for the drug addiction that's rampant? Who pays for the loss of jobs, etc., in the community when gambling comes in and it sucks the life out of your community, where all of the other businesses, except for the large casino complexes, go out of business? The local hoteliers, the mom and pop restaurants, and those sorts of things. If you don't work for the large casino, you don't work. And so that's something as a society we need to look at. My approach is I enforce laws, I don't make laws. And so if my community decides to legalize marijuana, I'll do the best that I can to enforce the laws such as they are. Same goes with gambling. My personal preference as to whether I agree or disagree with either one of those things really doesn't matter in this debate. The day that I come to work and decide I'm going to enforce the laws that I agree with and not the ones that I don't is the day I shouldn't be sheriff.
I heard you guys have a command bus. I want to know what that is for and what that does for us.
Mario asked about our command bus at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and yes, Mario, we do have a command bus. Actually, we have two. We have a smaller mobile command bus that we use for incidents, again, that are not very large in nature, or in the outside event that our large command bus is down. It's a mobile command center. The county also has one. What we do with that is we set up on scene. If you followed us during some of our recent natural disasters where we had the tornadoes, both in Century and then, of course, down in Escambia County, just outside the city out on Scenic Highway. Our command buses are set up there, and they're a mobile command center that we dispatch out of. It does a couple of things. Number one, it allows us to centralize control for that specific incident, and it also relieves our dispatch, which is on duty 24/7, to not have to handle those calls. So it's a central command authority for a specific incident, and they're only called out for those reasons. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV, Tuesday night at 8 p.m.